Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim, and our guest today is Danny. So Danny, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me, Dan. My name is Danny, and I'm living in Chicago right now. And I work for an organization called Neighborhood Forest. And Neighborhood Forest, just to kind of go into a little bit detail with that, it's a nonprofit organization with, at its core, the main mission is to empower and engage our youth by providing them with free trees every Earth Day. Yeah, we're doing that on a great scale across the US, Mexico, and Canada as well. And yeah, excited to be talking with you today.
Awesome. So in terms of Neighborhood Forest, I know that you're not one of the founders. I'm always curious to hear like the story of how it came about. So yeah, I'm curious about that.
Yeah, so the Neighborhood Forest has been around for about 15 years now. I'm new within the organization, but yeah, 15 years it started. Vikas Nirula is the executive director who started it. He's in Minneapolis. He could speak better on it in terms of his own mission and vision, but he has always had an affinity to trees. And I know he planted trees when he was a youth. He's also planted trees with his sons, his children when they were kids, and has just seen the power of what trees do, not only for our communities, but also for children, and really instilling that sense of stewardship and environmentalism with the kids at an early age. So that was his vision 15 years ago. And since then, it's slowly but surely been growing. And what started off as a very small organic thing that he was doing on his own has turned into his passion, along with mine and many others and thousands of people annually when we do the planting.
Amazing. So in terms of your partnerships, like do you partner with schools or other nonprofits? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so the avenue. So we're active in all 50 states. And like I said, and in Canada and Mexico also. And the avenue to the communities and to the schools and to the kids is just like you said, via a school or a library association or a Boys and Girls Club or the Scouts or really any number of organizations that have a pulse on the community can sign into our program. And then through our logistics, through our partnership, through our funding, we're able to provide trees at no costs to those kids that are part of those programs. So yeah, so we, like I said, we're active anywhere. If you have a specific school that you would like to get involved, it's very easy for schools or an organization to register. And then, yeah, through our logistics, our networking, we're able to get those trees to those kids to plant.
So does each kid get their own tree, or is there like multiple like kids per tree, or what does that look like?
Yeah, that's the idea. I mean, the idea is for each child to receive his or her own tree, to have that tree and then to take it home and plant in their own yards.
Oh, wow.
So what we're really looking to do is, I mean, there's studies that have been shown on the benefits of trees. We know the benefits of trees in terms of air pollution and fighting heat islands. And there's been so many studies done on that, which is amazing and wonderful. But what I also really like about Neighborhood Forest is at the same time reaching out to our youth, educating them, and then empowering them with these trees to be able to plant them and see them grow to fruition. And then at the same time, they're becoming lifelong stewards of the environment through this experience. And then we get all the benefits of the trees with the same time and regreening our neighborhoods.
Amazing. So I know many Americans today do live in highly populated urban areas where they don't have a yard. So for people who live in like an apartment complex, what does that look like for them in terms of like where they can go ahead and plant those trees?
Yeah, great question. I get that a lot because ideally, yeah, we would all have green space to be in at all times, but we just don't. That's the reality. I mean, I'm living in Chicago, and clearly in any urban area, you may not have the luxury of having trees and a big yard to plant. So for those kids and those families that live in urban areas, or they may live in an apartment or a condo or whatever the demographic is, we do have an indoor plant program. And for those kids, we provide them with succulents. And so instead of a child, if they don't have space to be able to plant in their own yard or on their own property somewhere, we can offer them and provide them with succulents. And then so they still have that little piece of nature and they still have that empowerment of caring for that plant. And that can address those kids that don't have the green space to plant a tree outside.
Amazing. So in terms of types of trees, obviously there's lots of different types of trees. So do you have like a select number of options, or can a kid pick like a certain tree?
Yeah, good question. So the goal is always to be able to send a native indigenous species to a given area. So a native tree to Florida is going to be different to a native tree in upstate New York. That's going to be different to a tree in Montana. And so we work with nurseries around the country, and we're always looking to provide indigenous native trees to a given area. And don't quote me, but I think there's maybe about 15 or 20 species of any given tree that could be sent. A lot of times logistically, it may determine on what species are available within a given year, depending on what the nurseries have available. But no, the kids can't just go in and select out of a catalog, I want this. We do it off recommendations, off altitude, off types of soil to send indigenous and native trees to a given area.
So like the nurseries are local to that region and say, hey, listen, like, this is like what we have. This is going to work for Texas.
Yeah, we have to be able to support the volume and offer those trees. But yeah, the goal is always to send indigenous natives. And yeah, like I said, I mean, off the top of my head, a white oak may be sent to a given area, or a pine or what have you. But so there are different species that are more locale and better suited for a certain climate area. And so our goal is always to be sending those indigenous trees to those areas.
Makes sense. So once a tree is planted, how long does it take on average from that time to when it actually, starts to grow and you can start seeing some fruits of your labor?
Yeah, a good question. And I mean, maybe you do or don't know. It takes time. So when we give these trees to kids, they're saplings, they're small trees, they're 6 inches to a foot long.
Right.
And we found, though, logistically, that's what's possible in order to send thousands and tens of thousands of trees out annually. But then so what we do is we engage and educate and support those children. And also we get sign-offs from the parents, because the idea is we don't want these kids just to plant the tree and forget about it. We really want to educate them, instill this sense of environmentalism within them, empowerment. So we have educational content that we send to them. Some trees, depending if it's really sunny, they may grow a few inches to a foot within a year. Other ones may take a little bit longer to start growing. But what's really cool and what really got me excited about the organization is, it's been around for 15 years. And we have photos of kids from 10, 15 years ago when they're 5 years old with their tree. So a 5-year-old with a sapling. And then 10 years later, we had that same child at 15 years old with a tree that is tripled in size or quadrupled or whatever, different species grow at different rates. But so, yeah, it takes time, trees. And I think that's also an important learning experience, especially for our youth, is when we see trees, we need to be thinking twice about if we should cut them down for property, or we need to be very selective instead of just going and clear cutting. We need to be selective with which trees we keep in a lot, because they take time. And these big, magnificent trees that are in all of our old neighborhoods, some of those trees are 100-year-old. And so I think there's, it's a big learning opportunity, even with the trees that are slower growth, to really make it sustainable and educate these kids on the power of the tree, but also the patience and what it takes for them to get as large as they get.
Yeah, it's amazing. Do you ever send out or grow fruit trees as part of this program?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. So we do send out fruit trees. A lot of times, if hypothetically an indigenous tree is not available in a specific locale for whatever reason, in that time we would send out a fruit tree, whether it be berries or fruit. And again, we do that because then those trees are also offering more to the flora and fauna in a given area. They also help with the biodiversity. Again, I don't know all key specifics in terms of which trees will be sent to a given location, like now for April. Because again, there's a lot of variables and depending on which tree goes where or which species, but we do send out fruit bearing trees for sure.
For sure. So obviously now we're in 2025. It's a new year. So what are some of your biggest goals and objectives for this year?
Yeah. Well, so for the organization as a whole, we're looking to reach out to 100,000 plus kids and plant 100,000 plus trees. So those are overall goals for neighborhood forest, which is really exciting. And we're going to be able to do it. We've seen a lot of really good growth in recent years because, and again, the executive director of VCAS can speak better on this, but we've had a lot of growth with library associations, and librarians really have a great network. So we've been able to grow very organically within schools, within libraries, within various districts to spread the word and get people excited. So overall for neighborhood forest, reaching out to as many kids as possible. A realistic goal is 100,000. And then for me personally, like I said, I'm fairly new into the role, and I'm just excited to be speaking with people and spreading the word and also getting them excited. And my role within the organization, I was brought on, of course, to spread the word and continue to do good with the mission. But in order for that mission to happen, we need funding.
Right.
So some goals for me are to really just secure funding and partnerships, whether it be from corporate or grant funding or other nonprofit organizations, to reach out and to speak with as many people as possible to spread the word, but then also to bring in the donations, the funding in order to provide the trees at no cost to the kids.
That's amazing. So yeah, I mean, in terms of like funding, is it mostly private, or do you get like, let's say, it's like a lot of government grants?
Yeah, good question. It's all of the above. Like we rely on a lot of corporate funding, and obviously corporations are able to support in larger monetary amounts. They're a corporate company, so they can offer and give more. Another thing too with corporate companies, which is great, is we do have some programming where a company wants to involve their employees in employee engagement. So we have a plant one, give one. So hypothetically, let's just say Zing, Dan, you have 100 employees working for you, or you have 1,000. You guys could sign into the neighborhood forest program and the plant one, give one. So all of the Zing employees would get a tree to plant and put on their own home. And then that would be matched with the child in the program. So a lot of opportunities with corporate companies. Funding can be great with grants, whether it be from like federal government or state government. Grants take time, so that's a full-time job as a grant writer. But they're great, when you can get them. And then also individuals, there are a lot of generous people that donate. And I've had friends of mine, family friends of mine, and, just individuals in my life that I've just spoken with, like at Thanksgiving, and I was telling them about what I'm doing, and they felt moved and they donated. And there's no wrong amount. Like someone that is more wealthy may be able to donate more into the program, but then, even for someone to donate $20 is still going toward the program and enabling children to plant trees. So it's coming from all over. Kind of wrap it up. Corporate donations and grants can be the largest funders because they have the capacity to do so.
Right.
The more people that we can get involved individually, the more it spreads as well. So I'm really kind of looking across the spectrum of who to speak with.
For sure. And you mentioned obviously this year you're looking at about 100,000 trees being planted. What's like the bigger goal? Like, are you looking to expand, across continents?
Yeah.
As you mentioned, obviously North America, you have, Mexico, US, Canada, but
yeah, big goals. I mean, yeah, realistically, big goals are to reach every child in North America, and that takes time. But like, again, if you speak with a VCAS or executive director, that's his goal, is to really be able to tap in, involve children across the continent. And then beyond that, as of right now, we're not in Europe, we're not in South America, we're not in Asia. However, there are tree organizations that are working on a global scale, and we would love to be able to expand with big dreams to really enable and empower our youth on a global level with this program.
Amazing. So what would you say is like the one biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew before you joined this organization?
That's a good question. I don't know. In a very nice way, things have been going very well so far. Like I have a background in sales as a whole, but I worked in Silicon Valley in San Francisco. I also lived in Amsterdam and worked there for years. So my background is in sales. And I know with different sales job, it was difficult sometimes because you had to find a unique client that was looking to purchase a specific piece of software. And it can be quite complicated depending on what the needs are and what the software did.
Right.
But in terms of neighborhood forest, what I really love about it is that I can engage with a lot of different people in a lot of different fields, whether it be a software company or a lumber company or a small printing company or another nonprofit organization that is tied in with conservation. So, I mean, going back to your question, advice I would give myself, I don't know. Thankfully, there hasn't been too many like massive hurdles because I'm finding really good, interesting conversations with a lot of people. And I suppose the advice would be is to maybe in the beginning, what I'm learning now is to have a key set list of maybe companies that I know I want to go after and penetrate harder.
Right.
Like it took me some time to kind of hone in on who I want to go after, but that's a good problem to have. Like I'm not running into too many issues when I'm having a hard time for people to be engaged, to have a conversation. The thing is, having a conversation doesn't automatically mean, oh, yes, we love the idea, we want to fund it.
Right.
We often get, oh, yes, we love the idea. However, we just love the idea. We maybe can't support you monetarily. But I still even believe with that, the conversations I have and the people that I speak with, there's a lot of engagement. People are excited to help and they're curious. And it's a win-win. Kids love talking about, no, I should say people love talking about kids and trees as well. It feels good to talk about it. It feels good to do good. So that's really been a pleasure so far for me.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously like an amazing mission. I don't think it's a tough sell at all. It's just more of getting in front of the right people. And also, yeah, I mean, I think, in terms of companies, they often have many organizations that they're supporting. So it's like, how can this fit into their budget?
Exactly. And they have different initiatives. One of the things that I've realized, and this is just an example of mine, big corporate companies have huge pillars and initiatives, but they might be going after hunger, for an example, or they might be going exclusively after, children and athletics, as an example. So obviously, we don't really fit within that realm.
Right.
But what I'm beginning to find out more and more is sustainability is huge. I mean, that's on everybody's radar right now, whether it be from an individual perspective or a huge international corporate perspective.
Right.
And then people want to be able to do community outreach. Organizations want to be able to give back into their communities. And I think that's also what's really cool about neighborhood forests is we can localize so much. So let's just say Zing, again, as an example, you're headquartered in Austin, right? Is that what yeah.
Yes.
So you have, hypothetically, again, if you have a huge office in Austin and you were to say, we want to work and support our Austin community within the neighborhood forest program, we could onboard a local organization within Austin to distribute the trees.
Right.
Which is great because then you can really make an impact in your hometown or in your home area or within your child's school or within your library association, which really opens the doors a lot. Because again, and kind of just going off that thought of how cool it is that we can be local, when I was looking around at different organizations, because I've always had an affinity to trees. And I've always, you call me a tree hugger. I've always enjoyed hiking. I've always enjoyed being outdoors. And I was looking to get involved with a tree organization on some level. And there's a lot of wonderful organizations that are doing great good on a global scale, but they're doing massive scales and global scales. So that means they might be planting thousands of trees, but it might be in Madagascar or in the Philippines or elsewhere, which is all great work. But what's really great about neighborhood forest is that we're doing it in our own backyard, in our own communities with our own kids. So that really spoke to me, the importance of engaging our local youth, regreening our neighborhoods, and really localizing that and engaging our youth in that manner. And then at the same time, like I said, regreening our neighborhoods, helping out our flora and fauna in our own society. So that's been really cool with the experience.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. It's obviously a great mission. And if somebody watching this wanted to get in contact with you or is interested in learning more about neighborhood forests, what's the best way for them to get in contact?
Yeah, so the email address, the website is just neighborhoodforest.org. So feel free, check it out if you have schools or libraries or someone you think that you would like to sign into the program. And then reach out to me. I mean, my role is to speak and to educate and to help and to support this program. So my email address, my email is Danny, DANNY then my last name is SCHOEN. So Danny.SCHOEN at neighborhoodforest.org. And then, if it's something like what I'm hoping is a lot of people are able to hear this and listen to this and be inspired and then spread the word. And then let's have calls, let's engage, let's brainstorm on ways that we can make the biggest impact for the most kids. But that would be a great way to start.
Awesome. Well, Danny, thanks so much for your time today.
Yeah, man, my pleasure. Thank you.